All right, so it's 8:02. We're going to go ahead and get started. This is, like I said, Shantal Myers. I am a Sage 100 contractor consultant. I work for ETHOSystems, who I guess is your business partner. I have been in the industry, the construction industry, for going on 30 years now, and consulting for about 8 years. I've taught this year-end payroll class for I think the last 5 years. So if you're responsible for closing your year-end books in Sage 100 Contractor, preparing your W-2s, not much have changed over the years. There's a few things that Sage has recommended that is different than prior years that we'll discuss later, but the process itself is not necessarily a whole lot different. If somebody wouldn't mind if they could just put in chat if they can see my screen. There's a PowerPoint presentation. I want to make sure that everybody can see my screen. It doesn't show me in this meeting. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Today, like I said, we're going to be going through the Sage 100 Contractor year-end payroll close and W-2 presentation. Thank you guys all for helping me out. Yeah, if you didn't sign up for the other session, you can actually jump on ETHOSystems.com website, and there is a events page, and I can show you guys that real quick. I have some chat coming in. If you go to your ETHOSystems website and you go to resources, events, and webinars, and you scroll down, you will see session number 2 that's scheduled for next week. If you just want to register there, that will get you into next Tuesday's training session, where we're going to be going through the general ledger and 1099 close. Yeah, it says you're viewing Jen's screen because Jen is our marketing person at ETHOSystems, and it's actually her webinar platform that I'm using. That's why it says Jen, but you're actually seeing mine. This is Shantal. So I may have some Canadian clients on the call. If you're in Canada, I mean, some of these processes are going to be the same. Obviously, we're going to, be running through. It's just not W-2s that you are going to be preparing, but I will show you checklist for the Canadian version, things like that. So yes, you're absolutely able to get the handout. It is actually in the chat. I mean, in the handout section of the meeting. I don't know if you guys are able to see that, but in your meeting panel, you should see handouts, and I have attached the PowerPoint presentation. So you can click on that and download that. I believe everybody is muted right now, so if you need to unmute yourself to ask me a question, I will do my best to try to man the chat as we go along. I'll be paying attention to that, but I'm just one person trying to teach you guys and man the chat. So I will stop for questions and I will check chat then. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the class agenda today is talking about the different options for closing payroll. So if you are in the newer version of Sage, at least 24.2x, that means whatever number is here, you have the ability now to either archive your payroll or close the payroll year. If you don't know how to check what version of Sage you are on, go into Sage, Home and Resources, About Sage 100 Contractor, and on this first row, Sage 100 Contractor US Edition, this will tell you where you're at, what version of Sage you are on. If you're not at least on 24.2, I definitely would recommend that you get to 24.2. If you don't know how to get to 24.2, that may be a discussion that you need to have with your consultant, or you can stay after and we can chat and I can see if I can help you. We're going to go through the process for closing payroll, and then there's a separate process for archiving payroll. That is now, those options, either closing or archiving. After the call today, I hope you come away with understanding if you're going to close your payroll or if you're going to archive your payroll. and you have all your questions answered about that. We're also going to talk about how do we process W-2s, and I will explain close versus archive. We'll get into that. We'll talk about the pros and the cons of closing versus archiving. We'll talk about processing W-2s. We're going to talk about advancing to the next fiscal year. Obviously, if you guys have changed your calendar period to December as far as where you're at in Sage, you're not going to see, you'll see January 2025 open. You're not going to see the rest of the years. We'll talk about or the rest of the months, how do we open February through December? And then we'll talk about available resources. In addition to this training, what other resources are available and out there for you guys as you go through this year-end close. Very, very, very important. You must have access to the database administration in order to perform the general ledger, which we'll talk about next week, and payroll archiving we're going to talk about today. If you don't have access to this tool, database administration tool that's on your server, you need to get access, usually through your IT company. There will be a new update that will come out with the new tax tables. Sage does maintain state and federal tax tables. So the new update is scheduled to be released 12/19. It's going to be 26.3. This is new. Sage recommends installing the year-end update before you close the payroll year, but after your last payroll. This is something we didn't do in the past. But Sage is recommending that you install this update before you close, but after your last payroll. So timing is going to be key for everybody. When are we going to do this? Something that you need to think about and discuss. So any questions so far? I don't see any new ones coming into chat. So like I said, I want you guys to understand if we close our books or our payroll module, what does that mean versus archiving? Closing is a new option to Sage with version 24.2 like you saw. The pros of closing, it's super easy. You literally just click a button. We're going to go through that process today. So it's very, very easy. Payroll records remain in the current database. So all of your payroll records, if you close 24, are going to remain in your actual database and not be moved to a separate database if you choose to close. So like I say here, it's great for workman's comp audits because if you are familiar with archiving, we archive, it splits it into a separate database. So if you have an audit, workman's comp audit, that covers two different payroll years, 24 and or say 23, 24 previously, then you'd have to go into 23 company database to get pull data, and then you'd have to pull data out of 24. If you close, you don't need to do that. It's all going to be in one database. A pro is we can fix payroll in existing system if errors are found, meaning if we find an error that we made on our 24 payroll and we just closed, we can correct that in our existing database. Another pro is W-2 and fourth quarter reporting can be done out of the same database, meaning you don't have to go to your archive database. It can be done in the same database. A con is it increases the size of the database. Obviously, more data increases the size, possibly slowing down your system depending on how many records you have. Another con of just closing is that you can't remove DNU payroll calculations. So if you're new to Sage and you set your system up this year, you may have found that you set calculations up incorrectly. You might have marked them DNU, do not use. We don't need to use those calculations, or maybe it's, you switched plans or something like that. We marked payroll calculations, do not use. If you just close your payroll, you can't delete those calculations. However, you can delete them from the employee record if they have not been used for payroll in the current year. So those are pros and cons of closing. Some pros and cons of archiving. A pro is that all payroll records are removed from the system and new database is created. So basically, Sage will take a snapshot of your database, copy of it, exact copy, and create a new archive database and remove all the 2024 payroll records and put it in a separate database. So if you need to access those records, you have to switch companies. We used to have to do that every single year. It wasn't even an option to close. So this is a fairly new thing in the last couple of years. Another pro is you can remove, delete unwanted employee and records. So if you archive, you can delete this information from your system. You can delete payroll calculations, the DNU payroll calculations that you no longer need to use. The con of archiving is you must log out and log into an archive database to access prior year records and reports. And another con is that sometimes, depending on how many payroll records you have, it can be a lengthy process. I have some clients who have thousands of payroll records. It takes hours to close and archive the payroll. So another con to that is that, you know, you might not have enough space. So in talking about when I said earlier, it's important that you have access to your database administration tool. If we go through the archive process and we choose that option, you need to make sure that your server has enough space to back up your company, create another complete company, and then it's going to back up the company again. So you'll need space on your server. I'll show you how you can check that to make sure that you have enough room. So before I switch slides, I have some questions coming in. So I'm just going to pause here and answer the questions really quickly. Let's see. If we archive payroll, do we need to have the new version 26.3 version updated before the archive? Yes. Sage is recommending this year that you update your system and then you close or archive. The reason is because they are saying that the update could have some important changes in the close process or to the forms and things like that. So, is it possible to archive later in the year or next year, or does it have to be archived immediately if you want to archive? So that's the benefit of closing the system. So if you closing payroll, if you decide, you know what, we're going to close payroll after our workman's comp audit, which could be sometime in the middle of next year or you know, first quarter next year. So we're going to close this year because we want those records in our one database. You can archive anytime. You can archive payroll in January for 24. You can archive after, you know, you can archive anytime you want. You're going to archive the oldest payroll year. So it doesn't matter. That's the benefit of this is a lot of companies now are closing the payroll for this year. And then when they get done with their workman's comp audit and pulling all the records out of one database, then they archive. That's their new process. So you can do that at any time. Do you recommend archiving payroll, not immediately, but perhaps after a couple of years? Yeah, I mean, that's up to you, Michelle. I personally would not archive just because I want the records in one database. It's kind of a pain to switch to an archive database to see it. But like I said, I have a lot of clients who are on the call right now who have been in Sage for, you know, 10 plus years, and they're used to archiving. So that's just their process. This new close process is something that's, it makes things a lot easier, I think. So I would recommend not archiving, but that's up to you. Tammy's asking, what if you want to archive a prior year payroll from 22? Can you remove old employees' DNU calculations? You can, yes, Tammy, if they weren't used in 23 or 24, but if they were used in 23 or 24, you can't. If you closed your payroll in prior years, say in 23 or 22, you closed, 23, you closed, 24, you're going to close, you're going to have a lot of information in your one database. When you go to archive payroll, you're only able to archive one fiscal year, and it's the oldest fiscal year at a time. So you can archive 22. Then you're able to remove DNUs or employees if they didn't have records in 23 or 24, if that makes sense. Teresa is asking, can you archive only at year end, or can you keep it closed for 5 or 6 months? Yes, you can. Patrice, hello, we have 22 and 23. Can we remove 22? Yes. Megan, will we receive an email with the instructions for the update? You will not get an email. I guess that is not happening anymore from Sage, but you will get a push-in from Sage, a push-in notification from Sage. Let me, oops, open this, pop this guy back open. So down here, there's a messages icon. Click on that messages. Oh, it looks like Sage is having a year-end webinar too, so that might be something you guys want to take advantage of. But see how there's a little one right here? That will tell you when the update comes out. It's supposed to be on the 19th, so you guys will be looking for that. You will get a message pushed in from Sage. You should be getting a push-in message that there's an update. Also, if you have Sage Advisor installed on your server, this Sage Advisor update, you will also get a notification down here in the bottom right when you log in that there's a new update available for Sage. That would be logging into your server that you would be able to see that. Yes, Michelle, she's asking, does Sage create a separate database for each year that is archived? Yes. So the general ledger archive and the payroll archive are separate processes. They actually just came out with a brand new feature this year where you can archive them at the same time, as long as your fiscal year is the same as your calendar year, January through December. You can archive them both at the same time. Prior to this year, you were never able to do that. So some companies, or all companies in the past who have archived the general ledger, that's a separate database. Archive the payroll module, that's a separate database every single year. So we'll go through that. Michelle, we'll need to troubleshoot the messages. I'm not sure. Did you check your preferences, right, on your messages? So under Sage messaging preferences, you want to make sure that you're getting those messages. Yes, you guys will get a recording, Janet, of the webinar. Okay. So the new option for payroll close process for multi-year payroll, meaning you can have multiple years of payroll in one database. It's going to give you the option to close payroll without archiving, as we have discussed. During the process, it resets all the employees' quarter and year-to-date information. What I mean by that is if you are in an employee's profile in 521, and you're on the calculations tab, you see quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, and year-to-date information here. Right. We go to earnings, we're seeing quarter information here. So when we close payroll, closing payroll, it resets all those to 0 and makes room in the space for 25. We talked about all payroll records remaining in the existing database. Some reports in Sage, then in payroll are updated with options for running with year criteria. We'll talk about a few of those reports that have been updated now that you can run in payroll module with a year as a criteria. The year on the check date, so the year on the check date determines what year and quarter the transaction falls into. So if we close payroll in December here in a couple of weeks, and then we're getting ready to, for 20, we move our period to 25 and we close payroll year to 20, we close payroll and we find as we're preparing W-2s in our fourth quarter, oh, we needed to make an adjustment on a 24 check. We still could put that 24 check into our existing database, dated 2024, and it will become part of the 2024 records. The date is what is driving it. The year is what is driving it. This is a mouthful, but try to follow me here. You can add, edit, and void payroll records in the closed year immediately preceding your current payroll year. So our current payroll year will be 25. It's saying we can add, edit, and void records in 24. Any payroll records with a check date older than that are read only. So if we had 23 in our system, we have 22 in our system still. We can't make changes to those. Those are read only. So I gave you an example. If you close 23 and 24 and your current year is 25, you can only make changes and add records in 24 and 25. Records in 23 are read only. So this again is trying to help bring clarity to what close means in Sage. Cindy and Michelle, I'm going to have to troubleshoot that with you, or you can reach out to Sage Tech Support. I don't know if you have already, but Cindy, how do we make sure we're getting the messages? So under Home and Resources, I'm pausing for questions, Sage Messaging Preferences. There, for some reason, my screen is scrunched, but you have, support alerts, newsletters, renewals, other communications. Make sure these boxes are checked so that you're getting messages. Oh, Tammy says she lost sound. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Oh, she said she got back. I guess it was maybe just her. All right, no worries. Janet, can I assume this is why it is important to get the last payroll in before the update and close? Yes, that is correct. Does the December 16th is December 19th update have the newest 2025 payroll tax tables in it? Yes. So there will be the update that comes out on the 19th. Hopefully it's the 19th. That's the tentative date that we have heard from Sage. So it's going to come out on the 19th. That will contain the updated tax tables. I've been consulting now for 8 years, and pretty much every year, there's not just one update that comes out. So there'll be an update that comes out that will have the update, updated tax tables from what the states and the government has released. But as we know, there will be subsequent changes to taxes and forms and filings and things like that. So there will be probably an additional updates. But the important one that I'm talking about right now is the 19th. That's the one that you're going to want to make sure that we have in the system before we process our first payroll for 2025. And then you want to make sure you update your system before you close payroll. So this is in preparation to close. This also could be in preparation to archive. The process is the same as far as closing out payroll. These are the steps that we're going to perform to get ready to close our payroll or archive our payroll. You must close or archive payroll before entering and computing time cards for the new calendar year. Timing is very important. So today, after our call, you guys chat internally, when are we closing or when are we archiving? Like, get the timing down, what date works best. And then, are we closing or are we archiving? That's another question that you need to discuss internally and nail down. I have had clients who did not close or archive and started entering in 2025 data. And when I'm saying 2025, the check date is 2025. So your first check date of 2025. It could still have 2024 work days on it. I'm just talking about the first payroll of 2025, dated 2025, right? That is what is driving the liability, and that goes into 25. So just for the people on the call that don't know, it's a check date that's driving this, not the work days. You want to make sure you've printed final bonus checks, owner, health insurance adjustment, health insurance adjustments, and then HSA contributions. I've given you solution IDs. A solution ID, oops, is a knowledge base article. So hopefully everybody on the call knows what a knowledge base article is. If not, I will show you. If you go into Sage, Home and Resources, Sage Support, Knowledge Base. So I gave you a number, the solution ID. You can copy and paste the solution ID into this field. And basically this is one of the knowledge base articles that I gave you, displaying the owner's health insurance on the form W-2. This down here is the solution ID number I gave you. So if you just punch that in or copy and paste it into the find or the search field, you'll get this article. It tells you what are the steps to perform in Sage to add the owner's health insurance to the W-2. So I gave you some key articles that you may need in order to update your system and checks that you need to put in prior to closing out your year. Just a recommendation to create a secure year-end folder to house all of your close reports, your tax filings, if you have audit reports, things like that. Something that we probably all are already doing. I just like to mention it. Another thing that you're going to have to decide with the team or yourself, are you going to be e-filing with Atrix? So if you already have an account with Atrix, obviously then you already are e-filing. I gave you a link to register for Atrix. Atrix is Sage's third-party business partner. Atrix pushes in tax forms into Sage. They also handle e-filing for tax forms and deposits. If you're not going to e-file, maybe you need to order forms. So I gave you a solution ID. Again, solution ID is knowledge base. Go to Sage Support knowledge base, punch in that solution ID. There are specific forms that Sage uses for year end. I can't copy from my PowerPoint, unfortunately. But what forms will I need to order? It tells you right down here, refer to this chart, W-2. Here's the forms that you need to order. You can order them from Sage if you wanted to, or you can find them online. you don't have to do that. But they're blank 4-part perforated forms. And I'm going to show you the W-2 process today so you'll know what they look like. There is a new tax law that came out, or IRS put out, that if you're emitting more than 10 forms per calendar year, you have to do it electronically. So the employer has to do it electronically if it's more than 10 forms. Your employees can get paper ones if you want, but you're also able to get your employees, give them electronic W-2s from Sage if you have the consent on hand. You can send your employees electronic W-2s, meaning via email, through the AICPA process if you have the consent on hand. In Sage, you can print a consent. (541) electronic W-2 consent. Select the employees. And I don't know why Sage doesn't have a select all button here, but you can check the ones that you want to print a consent for. Once the employee gives you the consent to give them electronic W-2, you want to make sure in their profile then, in 521, under compensation tab, you want to consent, mark this box, consent for electronic W-2. So select when the employee has consented to an electronic W-2 from Matrix. Then you don't have to worry about printing paper. That's such a pain in the fanny. I haven't done that forever, but I remember. So I would try to get everybody, get their consents completed before, January, or sometime in January before we do our W-2s. It's so much simpler. Also, probably more cost effective than buying the paper and the stamps and the stuffing and all of that jazz. So I gave you the screens, things you have to do here. If you are required to remit the Affordable Health Care Act forms, I gave you the solution ID number. There's videos that walk you through the ACA process. If you have over 50 employees, you fall under that requirement. Over 50 employees, you have to have or prepare those. A lot of companies, their third-party administrators do it for them, so that's ideal because that's kind of also a painful process. Another thing you want to do is ensure your payroll calculations are set up to properly report on the W-2s. So what I'm talking about is in 531, your payroll calculations, Nevada income tax. There's no Nevada income tax. So down here in the bottom right corner of the screen, there's a place for a W-2 box and a W-2 code. Let me see if I have my. So 401k is going to go in box 12, W-2 code D. Well, what if we don't know what goes there? You can always go help about this window. And up here in the search, W-2 box. So about W-2 box and W-2 codes and payroll calculations, it will tell you what goes where. Also, you want to check with your accountant, your CPA. They might have some, advice for you. One other part in preparing your system for W-2s is on the employee profile on the compensation tab. If you have a retirement plan, you want to make sure that box is checked. If you have third-party sick pay, You want to make sure that box is checked. So it's again just preparing us to get ready to do W-2s, close our system, make sure our system is clean and ready to go. You want to finalize 2024 payroll, print and post all payroll checks. Another thing that you want to do in preparation is review and update employee statuses. So open up 521, which is the profile, remove any employees or to remove them during the archive process. If you want to remove them from your system, they have to be in a quit, laid off, terminated, or deceased status. So what I'm talking about there is in 521, there's a status right here. This is what I'm talking about. Make sure that everybody is in their correct status. And the last on this slide is make sure that your company information in 7.1 is correct. So when you run Atrix tax forms, it's auto-filling from 7.1. So 7.1 in your system is your company information. So make sure if you moved recently, you have different information. We want to make sure the company name is correct, all of that jazz, all that information is right in 7.1 here. Okay, so I'm going to pause and answer some questions. If we do the 12/19 update, can we still process a 2024 payroll? Yes, with an archive to follow. Yes, you can. You can. As long as the date of the check has a 2024 date. If guys entering their daily time use SFO, where did that go? For the week of December 23rd, which that will be the first payroll cycle of 25. Does that mean we need to close before the 23rd? So as long as, I mean, you're putting in time, you're not computing it, right? You're just putting in time into daily payroll. If the time is going into 551, that's not doing anything, right? Remember 551 is a daily payroll like holding table. So you don't necessarily need to make it happen before then, but before you dump them into time cards with a check date, you'll want to make sure that you update your system and close the payroll. Tammy's asking, does anybody else have a problem with emailing employees from Atrix when completing W-2s? Yes, I have heard that that's an issue. I know that there was some, I think, Tammy, I helped you last year and we had an issue with it. I'll look for the article, but there was something with a Windows authentication and blocking emails, but maybe they've got it corrected. Tammy, I can't remember if we reached out to Atrix or not, but maybe we might need to do that this year. And I can test it this year to see if we're having the same issue, because I even had it on my side. Oh, Janet's saying, or Jeanette saying, I missed IRS change regarding W-2. Do you mind repeating? So basically, the IRS is saying that if you're emitting over 10 forms in the calendar year, they have to be electronic. So to them, they have to be electronic. Michelle, if we have a retirement plan, should everyone have that box checked in 521 or only if they're eligible? The box should be checked if they're a plan participant. If we use Atrix, will it also send out an electronic W-2 if the consent has been recorded? Yes. Also, how do I remove employees? Removing employees, like I said, we'll go through that process today, but the employees have to be in this quit, laid off, terminated, or deceased status to be removed from the system during an archive process. So we can't, if we close payroll, that we can't remove people. If we archive them, we can remove them from our current database if we don't want them there anymore and they don't have any records. Let's see. Sorry, I just want to clarify an answer. I just heard Sage recommends that we do the year-end update after the last payroll is run, but we don't have to. Because if we wait until after, but before the first payroll, we'll basically have 1 day that is available to do that. I mean, it really just depends on when your payroll happens. It's new this year that when I was doing my prep for this class, I saw that on Sage's website, and I'll show you guys that they are recommending that you update your system before you run the close process, because the update may contain fixes or something like that for the close. So Sage recommends you run your final payroll of the 2024 year, you update your system to the new version, and then you close payroll. Some people, it might not be 1 day before. Some people, it might be 2 weeks before. Lisa, should the retirement plan box be checked if it's not a 401k, but a IRA option? I would say yes. Aaron, I have a payroll that is from 12/29 to 1/4. I think you meant 25 with a pay date of 1/8. Do I close before or after this payroll? Well, you definitely have to close before, because the check date is what is driving the taxes. It's the liability that if it's paid in 25, it should have the 2025 tax tables, because it's the first payroll of 2025. It doesn't matter if there's dates that were worked in 24. It's the check date that's driving it. So you definitely should be closing payroll after the last check dated in 24, right? That should happen. And then your 25 payroll needs to be on new tax tables. But can we update before the last 2024 paycheck? I would not, because it has the new tax tables. Can we process a 2025 payroll before we close 24? No. Okay. Oops. All right, so we are going to jump into Sage. I'm recommending, obviously, after we've cut our final checks, we've gone through all the steps that I talked about in that prep slide, we want to run a payroll audit, which you guys should be doing anyways, after every payroll. If you're not doing it after every payroll, 5, 3, 7, definitely adopt the practice of auditing your records after every single payroll. All you do is come in, click audit, it runs an audit. One audit error found. No, there's a 1 quarter number check date mismatch. So it'll tell you all the errors that you have. It'll ask you if you want to review the report. The reason why you want to do this after every payroll is you're going to catch audit errors as they come up, as the year is going along. If you wait till the end of the year to run this guy, there's going to be a problem, right? Because you might have lots of audit errors. So it's saying that quarter number doesn't match on record 270. And then it's also saying Samuel Torres employee doesn't have third party, but pay, but the employee's third party sick box is checked. That's fine, that doesn't matter to me. That's the one I just checked that I showed you guys when I was giving you an example. But I do want to fix this record 270. So I'm going to go to 522, and I'm going to type in 270 up here on the record number. So it's saying July 5th is my check date, but it put it in Q4. So I just changed that quarter, even though it's on a posted record, I can change the quarter to match my check date, save it, and now I'm going to rerun my audit. The audit error that it's finding is that I checked that sick box, but that's okay. That's not like hurting anything. I can just go uncheck the box and I wouldn't have an audit error. Another thing that is, if you run this report and you get audit errors, you can click repair, and the system will go and repair audit errors. While that's running, Thea, yes, it's fine that your version is fine. So run your audit after you've done all of your checks. Make sure it's clean. And then I gave you a whole list of payroll reports that I would recommend running and tying out to each other. It tells you how to do it. Take into consideration that some of these reports will have gross wages and some will have taxable gross wages. Some of your gross wage reports might include reimbursements. If you guys chose to reimburse your employees through payroll, which Sage recommends against, your gross wages will show your reimbursements as part of their gross. But on the taxable gross reports, it won't show them because that's non-taxable. So the difference between the gross wages and the taxable gross wages are all those calculations that you have set up that aren't subject to tax. So when you're preparing your reconciliations and tying out your federal reports to your W-2s and things like that, make sure you're taking that into consideration, because every single year I get calls like things aren't matching, they're not tying, and it's usually because we're using the wrong report or we're looking at the wrong information. And it usually 99% of the time has to do with the reimbursements or things that we're running through Sage payroll that Sage recommends against, but people still do. So I would recommend running these with the check date as the criteria, meaning 1/1 through 12/31, whatever fell in that calendar year is what would be included in these reports. Another thing that you're going to want to do, especially if you're archiving, or really only if you're archiving, is perform a records count. So what we want to do is we're going to go to 522 and go to file count. So we have 270 records. Why do we want to do that? Why do we want to look at that? So when we archive and we create a separate database, we want to go run a records count in the archive database. Again, we want it to be 270 because that's what was there before we archived. Because Sage is like going to take all the data and remove it to a separate one. We want to make sure that nothing transpired in between that, in that move. So we want to make sure the records are the exact same number of records in our archive database. You also want to run a 51241 check register report, the totals page only for the whole year, before and after you archive. So we're going to get the count to make sure that's correct, and we're going to get the numbers, the values to make sure that that's correct before and after we archive. When payroll is complete for 24, you run your final payroll audit. You're going to want to back up your company using the database administration tool. So, like I said, you need to have access to the database administration tool on your server. It looks like this. You're going to want to back up the company. And this is before we close payroll. You're going to want to back it up because if something happens during the close process and we need to restore the backup, we can do it. So it's just best practice. To do that. I had a question come in while this is opening up. Can we get all of the pages you're showing in a PDF format? I mean, it's in a PowerPoint. Is that, I can save it as a PDF. Sorry, I wasn't anticipating my system running so slow. So we're going to kick off a manual backup, tune up, backup, restore. If you've never been in here, that's how you do it. Tune up, backup, restore, backup companies. You're going to go to your company and you're going to click create backup. It's going to save it here. It gives you a reminder, it's saving it for 30 days, and then it's going to kick off the backup. Down here in the bottom left, it's in the green area, it's telling you that it's backing up. You want to make sure you print your payroll reports prior to closing. Why do I want to do that? Because sometimes the reports might not be available. Sage only gave us some reports to include prior year. So there's a checkbox, for example, in 51881. So we're still backing up. This is an hours report. I'm just giving you an example. 81, you're going to see include prior years. So some of the reports in Sage Payroll will have a box to include prior years, not all of them. So if there's certain reports that you want to run, you want to do that before you close, even, because you want to make sure that you can run them for that information, with that calendar year. 522, another thing that's going to happen when we do this close is 522 in our payroll record screen, the drop-down box. Right now, I'm only seeing records related to 24, right? All of this is 24. When I close payroll, which we're going to do, we're going to see in the screen again, up here in the header, there's going to be a toggle button that will say current year and all years. So to see just my 25 payroll, I would toggle the current year. To see previous years that are in my system, I can go to all years to see the records in this screen. So this is new inserted into this PowerPoint from prior year, install the year-end update. So after you back up, you're going to install the year-end update. This is what Sage, I got this right from Sage. The year-end update may include program fixes affecting the closed payroll year. Archive oldest payroll year and archive oldest fiscal year functions. So like I said, this is new this year. We never have done this before. So we finalized payroll for 24. We back up our company. We install the year-end update, and then we close. Let's go see if our backup is done. Backup complete. So I feel good that if something happens during our close process, I can restore it. Janet, you're asking me to repeat the last statement, but I don't know what. This statement is, oh, maybe you said in what order do we have to do things? Maybe that was it. So what we're going to do is we're going to finalize our 2024 payroll by going through all of those steps in the preparation that I have listed out in those PowerPoint presentation. We're going to get ready. We're going to, print the final payroll checks, make sure everything is clean, run an audit. So we're finalizing 24 payroll. Then we're going to back up the company using the database administration tool. Then we're going to install the year-end update. And then we're going to close payroll. I don't know if that's what you wanted me to repeat, but hopefully it was that one. So after you have, completed your 24 process, you run your final audit, you've closed out your not closed out your payroll, I should not say that word, ran your final reports, your payroll is ready to go for 24. There's nothing left to do. Back up the company, update your system. Then if you're choosing to close, you're going to go to 538 with admin access. You do not need exclusive access to do this, and you're going to click close payroll year. This is why it's very simple. People can still be in your system while you do this. Right now in the bottom left, it says I'm in with admin rights and exclusive access. You don't need this exclusive access. So we're going to go to 538, and we're going to close the payroll year. In this screen, saying you need to close the payroll year prior to computing payroll records that will be paid in the next year. So Lisa, I think it was you that asked me, how you handle it. You can dump 551 records daily even into your 522. You just can't compute it. So you're not going to want to compute the records for the new year that are dated in 2025. You're not going to want to do that, computing before you close 2024. Also, here is the year-end guide, which is funny that it's right here. Like we've already done everything, and this is giving us an option to print the year-end guide. But I do want you to, you can go there now and click print on the year-end guide. Even though you're in 538, just what I did, you're not closing anything. We haven't closed anything. So if you guys want to open up 538 and print this year-end guide, it's really great. It's from Sage. It was updated in October, and it walks you through, the year-end process, archiving, ACA reporting, things like that. So it's 28 pages, not very many pages. But this is where I learned about the update. So definitely print this out, go through it. Just again, another resource for you to have handy. Year-end guide. So 538, we've done everything we need to do. We click, and I would have updated by now. I don't have the update because it's not out. But I've gone through all my steps of, making sure my 2024 is prepped and ready to go. I would then update my system. It's not out yet, so, and in fact, I'm on the newest version, so I can't even update. And then I'm going to close payroll. You're about to close payroll for the calendar year 24. Make sure this year is right. I actually did have one person last year who closed it twice because they didn't remember if they did it, and so they were in the next year. They were in 25, and they were already processing payroll records with check date of 24. But their calendar and Sage or behind the scenes said it was in 25. They kept getting notifications. So make sure you're only doing this once. It'll tell you what year you're closing. It'll go through very quickly. It's a quick process, and it'll close the payroll. So during this process, like we talked about earlier, it's simply zeroing out quarter and year-to-date information, moving them to different tables behind the scenes, prepping us to get ready for 25 records. Camille, while this is running, I don't see, I mean, I don't know what version of Sage are you on if you're getting the 2023 guide. You might be on an older version of Sage. At the end of our call today, I'm going to go through resources that are available to you guys. And so there's going to be links to different options for Sage and, you know, different resources. So we'll cover that again, and you'll be able to see the 2024 information. But I definitely would be interested, Camille, to see what year of Sage you're on, that you're not seeing it. Payroll closing is complete. You're now ready to process payroll for 25. Giving you a reminder, be sure to update payroll calculations and employees with new rates and maxes for 25. So that's simple. That's just that simple. We closed payroll. It's telling you to update payroll calculations. So what that means is that in payroll, you know, there's a new Social Security rate for 25. Sage is not updating that for us. So we're going to have to go to the payroll calculations, find your employee's Social Security, and update it to the new rate. In 25, it's 176,100. I just Googled it. You can too. That's the new rate for 25 for Social Security. You put it in the max, options, update employees, update max only. And I like updating all employees, because if I have somebody on my team who is terminated right now and I hire them back, I want their record to be updated. All employees are going to be updated, yes. So I just pushed out the new max to all employees. So I have to do that on the employee side and on the employer side. Another thing you're going to have to update is the 401k max. That changes every year for, you know, people that are over 50 or under 50. However you have your plan set up in Sage, make sure you update those rates. You need to update, you know, your unemployment rate. That changes every year. You're going to update that as well. So I tell you here, update the calcs. Oops, sorry about that. Update the calculations in 531. Adjust the defaults. I tell you to update employees using the option. What you don't want to do, right, is if on your 401k plan, you update it to the new max. I didn't look that one up, but whatever the new max is for, let's see, 23,500. So 23,500. That's under 50. But say I went to options update, you're not going to want to update all employees because not everybody has a 401k plan. You're only going to update employees with the calculation, because if you did all employees, now everybody does have the plan in Sage. So make sure that you're paying attention when you're doing this and you're doing only employees with the calculation on the 401k plan or other benefits that have maxes on them. You can find maximums for for the new year. I gave you the link. Another thing you're going to have to do is adjust vacation sick accruals if the leftover or what's remaining doesn't carry forward. You would adjust wage garnishment maxes if that's applicable. Sage is not updating those either. And then run your W-2 and fourth quarter reports out of your environment, out of your existing database. This is all closed, right? We closed the system. It can all happen in one database. Any questions? Okay. Michelle asked, do we have to run 2024 W-2s before processing a 2025 payroll? No. Oh, Janet asked the same thing. You guys are on the same page. No, because at this point we've already closed, right, in our process. I went through and I closed the payroll, you saw it. So up here, I closed it. Right here, go to 538 with admin access, click close payroll. And then now I can process my 25 payroll. And then whenever I'm ready to run my W-2 and my fourth quarter reports, I do that in my same system. This is if I've closed the payroll year in Sage. You can do that at any time. Are there any questions about the close process as far as closing is concerned? Because I'm going to switch over to archiving now. If you were to archive, what does that look like? One thing I did want to show you guys very quickly is now that I've closed, oops. Remember I said up here, we're seeing view by. Now we're looking at current year records. There aren't any because I don't have any for 25. If I want to see 24, I can switch to all, and I'm seeing 24 records now. Also, on the employee profiles, on the calculations tab, my quarter and year to date zeroed out. My earnings has zeroed out. What's cool about having a closing, your payroll is still here. Like my payroll for 24 is still here. I'll see all the 24 records. In this one database. That's why, you know, I like closing. I would definitely, if I was working in the field, close payroll and not archive. But this is a new process, and I have a lot of clients who have never done this, are concerned about it. They've always archived, it works for them, and that's what they do. So we're going to go through the archiving process, and you guys can decide what you want to do. As far as preparation is concerned, it's the same preparation, meaning, you know, you're going to finalize your 2024 payroll. If you choose not to close and you're going to archive, it's the same process leading up. Make sure it's done. Archiving, like I said, you saw in the pros and the cons. Once we archive, it's not easy to make an adjustment to the 2024 payroll. So the first thing you want to do when you're archiving is to create a backup of your company. And again, whether you choose to do it at the end of the year to clear payroll out before your 25 payroll, you can do that instead of closing, or you can perform this archiving process at any point in time. If you choose to close the payroll year, and then you want to wait until after your workman's comp audit, you can do that. And then you can archive at any time. So create a backup of your company file using this database administration tool before you start the process. All payroll for the year should be complete before you archive. We already backed it up. You're going to open up the database administration tool. So if you have your PowerPoint presentation, that's what I'm going to be doing. So if you want to follow along, have at it. The PowerPoint that I'm going through is already in the handout section of the meeting. So if you guys want to open that up, if you haven't already done that. Back over to the database administration tool. This is why you need access. You're going to open up archive company data. Archive oldest payroll year. There's also another option here for the year-end guide. Click on year-end guide. This takes you back to the 2024 year-end guide. Select the company to archive. So it's saying use this option to remove payroll data for the calendar year from the selected company and place it in the archive company. So it sees the calendar year that I'm closing. Lots of options for triple, double checking. Every year that you archive, you want to use a name that's consistent. So I would recommend maybe the year and then payroll in the name. You can type out payroll or PR. So that way, when I'm looking up information, I go to 2024 payroll archive or a 2023 payroll archive. Or if I archive my general ledger, that would be 2023 GL archive. I can go to the databases and they're properly named. And if you keep it consistent, they go in order when you're looking at them. So it's nice and orderly. You don't have to figure out 22 is mixed in with 23 because I named it payroll archive 23. It's at the end instead of the beginning type of thing. Here you get to remove employees. So somebody asked me earlier, how do I remove employees? You do this here. Remove employees from the current company after creating the archive in these statuses. I can choose to do all of them or inactive only, or I can say, I want to see when you're going to remove somebody, I want to approve it every time. And then when you're doing this, you do have to have exclusive access to the database, meaning nobody else can be doing that in the system. Click Create Archive. Payroll records for the calendar year 24 will be moved to the new archived company and deleted, that's a scary word, from 24 payroll close training. Do you want to continue? Yes. Oh, see, I said you need exclusive access. Look, Chantal's in it. So I can either terminate her connection. I could just click on it and say terminate. Then she would get a little pop-up, or I can close it. And did it do that already? No way. I did this last night. It didn't happen that fast. So it's going to back up the company. This is going to take a minute. I don't have a lot of, there's like 67 employees, not a lot of records in there. There was 270 records. It's 9:15. This will take maybe 5 minutes to do. So while we're waiting, I'll probably go talk about some additional resources for you guys. Down here in the bottom of the green, it's telling you kind of where it's at in the process. Janet asked, do we have to run W-2s before we close? No. There's a way to get a link to the year-end guide. Mine also says 23. So while this is doing its thing, I'm going to go to the last page of my PowerPoint. So some of your resources are here. There's a link for the community hub. You can copy it from yours, but this year end for Sage Community has a checklist of, let me see if I can just pull it up. I had it up earlier. Okay. That link takes you to this website, Sage 100 Contractor Year-End Center for the Canadian and US version. Here's some Q&A type of things. There's additional learning, year-end training for US and Canadian customers. Here's some checklists, the Canadian checklist, the US checklist. Updates. You can click on timeline. Oh, you did that yesterday. Dang it. I don't know why that does not work for me sometimes. Is anybody else getting that, or is anybody, hold on, somebody said they missed where I selected the year. Actually, I didn't select the year, Janet. So when I just labeled the company, or right here it says, what year do you want to close, or what company do you want to close? I selected the database I want to close, and Sage looks in the database and sees the oldest payroll records, and it will tell you right here, use this option to remove the payroll data for the calendar year. It sees the oldest year records in the system, and you will archive from there. So if, like, for your companies that are in Sage, at least the ones that I implemented, Janet, it'll say 24 because those are, you just started. So it will automatically say 24. You're not choosing the year. Sage will tell you what year you're archiving because it will archive from the oldest fiscal year. That's why this says archive oldest payroll year. It's going to do that for you. It's still running. Is anybody else getting that error when they try to click on the link on that web page? Or did anybody try to go there? You're not getting the error. Okay, cool. Well, something's going on with my system. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe if I use Edge. Let's try this. Huh. Yeah, I guess my system is just not liking Google. But the link I gave you in the last page of the Home and Resources, or of that PowerPoint presentation, has a link to Sage Community Year End. There's a timeline of tasks. It tells you step 1, ensure you're using the most recent version. Step 2, post all your, kind of everything we're going through today. This is where I saw that new step inserted. So reconcile your payroll reports, install the year-end update, then close payroll. I was like, wow, that doesn't usually happen in this order. They are recommending that this year. In fact, I install the year-end update before you close the payroll year. Archive the oldest payroll year, print payroll tax forms and quarterly reports, process payroll checks for the new tax year, or archive the oldest fiscal year. So it tells you right here exactly what I was saying that you need to do. That is something new this year that I haven't seen previously. So there's a timeline of everything that you need to do, or Sage recommends. There's the payroll close, the 2024. You should be able to click start download, and you would be able to get that year-end checklist. Let's see where we're at with our payroll archiving complete. Oh, we're done. And it could have been 5 minutes, but right now it's been 6 minutes. So 270 records, you know, it took 6 minutes for me. So payroll archiving complete, no employees were removed. If it did remove employees, it would tell you which employees were removed. Oh, so Cindy, you got the same thing where it didn't work for you in Chrome, but it worked in Edge. Yeah, for some reason that link that I pulled up, or that's on my PowerPoint, is not working in Chrome for me, but it works in Edge. If I put it in Microsoft Edge, it's working. So, all right. Well, now that our payroll process, our archiving is complete, we'll discuss what happened. So During the archiving process, which I just archived the records, all the payroll records are removed for the 24 year, including select employees with the chosen removal status. An archive payroll database was created. All quarter and year-end totals are zeroed out in the active company in preparation for the 25 payroll. It's a wizard, as you saw, it walked you through step by step. When the archiving process completes, you should verify the archive payroll data by opening up Sage. So we will go open up Sage. There's two buttons up here. One is active company, one is archive company. This is the archive. This is what I labeled it. Sage numbers them in numerical order. So if I had 2023, 2022, you can understand why I recommend that you number them so that it's in order. I'm going to open up with admin rights because you might want to make some changes to the archive database. First of all, it's going to be red, the background. This is not an active company. The red desktop background indicates that you're in a company archive. If you made your company red, because you can change the background color of your company, then you just need to pay attention. Your company might be red already. So the name up here tells you where you're at. Also down in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it tells you where you're at also. You're logged into the payroll archive, right? So in this archive database, you'll want to go check to make sure that all the records are moved over properly. So 522, you'll get this reminder everything you do in here unless you turn it off. But maybe you want to keep the reminder active so that you keep you're reminded, because you don't want to put anything in here. You don't want to actually put in entries in here. We just archived it. So we're going to go to 522 and we're going to do a records count. 270 records. Well, that's what it was before we moved it. That's what it is after. Check. Perfect. If it wasn't, you would go restore the backup. How do you do that? In your database administration tool, tune up backup restore, restore company from backup, browse, and it was an on demand. And it should be this first one, payroll archive. You just would double click on it. You don't need to upgrade or set up the nightly maintenance, and then you just click restore. It would restore the company. And you can start over and figure out what the heck happened. I have never seen it. And I worked in Sage for 10 years, and then I've been a consultant for 8. So I've never seen it not match, but not saying that it can't. That's why there's a backup plan. But I've never seen it. Now somebody's going to get it because I said that, but hopefully none of you guys. So 270 records, and then also in my list of things that you need to do to prepare to do this, there I had you run a totals report. Definitely want to run the same totals report in Sage to make sure the totals match. We know the records match. You want to make sure the totals match. The report that I told you guys to run in the PowerPoint is going to be the payroll tax register and the totals page, just because it's super simple. It's report 41, 51241. Run it for the check date of 1/1 through 12/31. Make sure it matches the numbers on the one you ran previous. Some things that you may want to do in your archive database is change the security to remove all the users that you don't want to have access to the archive company. Because when we did an archive, it just copied the company and removed the payroll records. So everybody that had access to your live environment still has access to an archive company. Maybe not everybody needs to have access, like project managers, things like that. They don't need to have access to that, the live company. So you maybe want to change the access, set all the security groups to no, meaning they can't do anything. We don't want anybody changing any records in here, not even yourself, right? User list, this is where you can take all the people out that you don't want to have access. You just remove them from the 722. And then on your security groups, maybe you want to change all of these to no. Or maybe leave your group yes, everybody else is no. So maybe they do need access to it, but you don't want them accidentally making a change. If you turn off the save or the delete or the void, they can't make a change. It's just not going to happen. The system won't let them do it. So just as a precautionary measure, change security group. If you archived, you're going to produce W2, W3, and your fourth quarter reports from the archive database. And I put in asterisks here, unless you closed payroll. If you close payroll, you're going to do that from your live environment. You wouldn't even be here. If more than 10 forms total, you must e-file. Like I said earlier, that's a new thing that came out. I think it was last year that the IRS said if you're remitting more than 10 forms of them, it has to be electronic. Doesn't mean your employees have to get them electronically. It just means a government has to get them electronically. Produce your ACA forms from your archive database. Print your federal forms from your archive database. Your nightly backup. Do you want an archive database to be backing up every night? If so, you want to make sure in your database administration tool, you're setting it to back up every night. So there's a schedule nightly maintenance here, create maintenance schedule, and then on your archive database, just save a schedule and make sure that it's backing up if you want it to. I don't think you need to. I wouldn't do it because you just have, as long as you have one archive database record company that's saved somewhere off of your server, especially if your server is like on premise, you want to be saving and housing these backups somewhere in the cloud. Make sure you have that one. It never changes. So you don't need to back it up every night because it's not changing. Nothing should change in it. So you don't really need to back it up, but it's an option if you want to. In your current database, this is if you archived. See this, I should have taken this out. Please mark this. I'm going to actually send out a new one to everybody on this call because this is new. Install tax update from Sage. I mean, maybe you could put a little asterisk next to it and put if there are any new ones, because it never fails. After the 19th, there will probably be more updates. The 19th is the biggest one, then there will be more updates, I can guarantee it. It happens every year. And Sage will tell you in the release notes what they're updating. If they got information from, say, Illinois just gave us their tax tables, now this update contains the Illinois tax tables, or whatever state taxes are being updated and changed, the release notes will tell you. Definitely recommend everybody on the call, you read the release notes so you know what is changing. If it doesn't affect your company or your state or your whatever, you don't have to worry about it. It's not really super important, but if it's something that does affect your payroll or taxes, you want to update, and the release notes will tell you that. So maybe next to this, you're making a note that says any subsequent, updates after 26.3 installation on 12/19 or something like that, because you may want to do that. So it might be a good note to keep there. You want to count the payroll records in 522. It should be 0. So I'm switching back to my live environment. I'm doing all of these things now in my live environment. File count should be 0 because I archived everything. There are no 2025 records, there's no 24 records, there's nothing for payroll in this window. Update payroll calculations, we talked about that. I gave you the Social Security limit. You can look up 401k, unemployment. You now can remove unneeded payroll calculations if you archive. Removing them, you just go to them and you delete them. So if I have DNUs, I now can go to 531 and I can delete them. Nevada doesn't have local income tax. I was probably doing this to test something, but edit, delete calculation, delete, it's gone. Update vacation sick accruals, loan balances, update employees with new W-4 information. If you have some companies have their employees fill out a new W-4 every single year. It's good practice. So, you know, there's a new 2020 tab. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the new W-4 that came out in your employee profile, there's a W-4 information tab. It's just good practice to have them on the updated forms. And then you can enter and compute your first payroll of the new year. The entry part you could have already have done. It's just you cannot compute the first payroll of the new year in your current database. Any questions about archiving? So hopefully you have a bit more understanding of, am I going to close? Am I going to archive? Maybe you're going to do both, just not in the same year, which you can do, and you guys understand how to do that. So now we're going to jump into W-2s. If nobody has any questions about this. I did have a question come in. If they have more than 1 year, though, in my older clients, I will just do it a year at a time, and Sage will show me. Yes, that is true. Sage is going to tell you what records it sees as the oldest payroll year, and it'll archive that year. So to check your space on your server, somebody asked me that, you can go to Toolbox dashboard, and then it's going to run kind of a health check on your server. It'll be green, or it should be green on each one of these as it's performing the health check. If SQL memory is slow, is red like mine is, you probably need more space. Your system might not be able to handle an archive because it backs up and then it archives and it backs up again. So that's a lot of, if your company has a lot of transactions, that's a lot of information. What I would do is run the health check if you have access, go to view details and send this over to your IT. If they don't know what it should be, Sage, in Sage Knowledge Base, there's the minimum system requirements for the version of Sage that you're on, 26.2, moving to 26.3. You should at least meet minimum. I would be more than minimum, especially if you have a lot of transactions. In the minimum, and Cindy, I can send it to you. I'll make a note to send it to you. I can send you the minimum requirements. It tells you how much space you need to back up, those recommendations. So I'll send that to you. You can send it to your IT. I actually can probably drop it in, hold on, let me just drop it in chat. That way everybody has it. 26.3, let's see if they even have it out yet. Okay, I found it. Let me just drop it here. Okay, hopefully you got that. I can't see the chat that I sent. Hopefully you guys got that link. Did everybody get that link? Okay. All right, let's jump into W-2s. If you didn't, let me know. Okay, so we're moving along here. I just like to talk, and so I'm getting short on time. W-2 processing. Processing W-2s using an Atrix wizard. If you closed your payroll, you do this anytime you want before January 31st when it's due, hopefully. You're going to do it in your, your live company. If you archive, you're going to do it in your archive database. Atrix forms might need to be updated. So if you're using Sage Atrix, the Atrix forms today, you should already know about updates. So I'm going to go to 5401 federal forms, options, update forms. It will update the forms. If there's no updates, it'll tell you there's no updates. If you run an update and you get an error, you might have to download the update from Atrix website and install manually. You can Google that. It's on the Atrix website. Here, I'm on partner Atrix, Sage 100 at the bottom, product updates, Sage 100 Contractor. I can also drop this into. Okay, bye Cindy, thank you. So make sure you have the newest forms. We're going to go to the this will say 2024 W-2. Make sure you're on the 24 year. You're going to click run report. Oh, I archived. Hello. Nobody called me out or anything. Help me out, people. I archived, so I can't do that in my live company. I got to do it in my archive database. 5, 4, 1. We're going to go to the W-2, 24, run report. It's going to run through its process. You actually could go through a test drive of your W-2s right now, or after our call. I want to test drive the first 25. I want to test drive all of them. You're not hurting anything. You're not messing anything up. You can do that as many times as you want. You can do that along with me, whatever you want to do. Or you can say, no, I want to start processing. So it says the test drive allows you to see how it works, but not save any information. You'll go through, make sure, your information is correct. Is that your tax ID number? It also, it's a wizard. It's super simple. It tells you what to do. If you have multiple databases in Sage that use the same tax ID number, you have to use the multiple. 99% of you only use one payroll data file for that tax ID number. Make sure your company information is correct. Are you filing for your employer or is it a third-party tax preparer? Put in these are your local taxes that it's asking me to populate. If you have already been using this, you won't, for local and state tax filings, you won't have to do this. This is for California and Nevada unemployment and withholding. These are state tax items. Do you have employees who are exempt from any part of medical or social security? Do you have employees who are members of the clergy? Do you want to use control numbers? Meaning you get to control, you can, customize the control numbers. You can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just helps in identifying the W-2 if somebody calls you, what is a control number, also for the IRS purposes, they would have the same number type of thing to prevent fraud, those type of things. Do you have any employees who elected to only receive W-2 forms electronically? This is gray. It's saying yes. Why is it saying yes? Because I marked somebody on their profile that they get the form electronically, so I can't change it to no, because that's why if yours is locked, it's because somebody has the box checked. meaning I said there's a consent on hand. Here's the control number box. What kind of taxpayer are you? Probably 100% of us are 941. Kind of employer, are you a 501c non-government, 501 state, local, federal government? Probably none apply. If you have third-party sick pay, the income tax withheld by the payer of the third-party sick pay goes in box 14. Establishment number, if you have that, an EIN number, if you used a different one this year, did you terminate the business this year? How do you want your social security numbers represented or shown on the W-2? Truncated with asterisks, truncated with X's, or the whole social security number? Next. You can, Jessica. Jessica asked if a third party issues W-2s, should we still run W-2s to ensure the match and the records? I mean, I have seen where Sage is right and ADP is wrong, or Sage is right and Paychex is wrong. I have seen that. If you want to do it for peace of mind, I suppose you could, but not a lot of companies who have third-party processors actually make sure that the records in Sage match to the penny. If you do, you could do that. I just feel like it might be, I mean, you can, absolutely. You don't have to do it, but. Yes, that is true, Janet. That is the truncation is only for the employee's copy. The Social Security Administration gets the full-fledged Social Security number. So you're going to get steps, tells you review and edit. It gives you an opportunity to fix errors, are going to be in red. Print copies. It tells you exactly what you need to do. Print the official forms and mail it in if you're not e-filing. Click next to the reports until the e-file session appears to submit electronically. This grid is intimidating, but if you chunk it in using just paying attention to up here in the left menu and then the blue highlighted columns, say this will walk you through kind of what it wants you to do. So right now it wants you to verify the employee information. Does the employee information look correct? So highlighted in blue. If it looks good to me, I mean, that's what they have. Nobody's giving me like a change of address. Just click next. It will point out to you if there's a problem, like it has. It says error, right? Zip code cannot be blank. So go back and correct. This person, there's a scroll bar right here. Luke didn't give me his zip code, or it's missing. FYI, if I update it here, it is not going to update Luke's profile. I would want to make sure that I go update Luke's profile, meaning in 521, where he's set up in Sage. So this whole time that I've been paying him, I've been missing his zip code. So those are things that you can fix, but it doesn't go back and fix their profile. You'll have to do that. So we're verifying verify additional employee information. These are headers, right? These are the email addresses. Do they get electronic W-2s? Are they statutory employees? Is there a retirement plan, third-party sick pay, right? These are things that are checked. I can change them here, but again, it does not change their profile. So best practice would be to go change their profile and then come back in and run this. So verifying the information, next. Now I'm verifying federal withholding, state withholding, Medicare, tips. Next, verifying state information, California wages, California tax. I'm gonna get an error here. Local wages found, but no state wages are found. So it's highlighting here. So if you notice, it's saying right here on this bottom one, right here, California SDI wages were found, but there's no California wages. It's a Nevada employee. So I could fix it here on this for his W-2s and then go figure out what happened. I can remove it. I can make changes here if I wanted to. If I would obviously need to dig in to figure out what happened. And I probably would want to go fix the payroll record first. But if you wanted to bypass it and fix the payroll record later, this is going to be their W-2, what prints out on their W-2. Obviously, we want our records to match. So best practice would be to go find out what was causing the problem. Why is that reporting that way, and fix it. And then it would present correctly in this grid. Verify unassigned columns. So if you had any up here that are unassigned, meaning they don't go to a box, I don't have any, but if I did, it would be, you know, I could make sure that they don't go into a particular box on a W-2. If they went into a particular box and they weren't assigned, these are pulling from the payroll calculation, I could assign them. I just use the drop down arrow and then I could figure out where they go. Box 12 is where the majority of our stuff goes, right? I could say, oh, D is the elective deferral for 401k. DD is the cost of the employer sponsored health coverage. So I could indicate it here versus in 531. But again, if I change something here, it's not going to go outside of this grid and update the records. I should probably do that first to make sure it's correct going forward. Somebody's asking where the email address comes from. You know, I don't know, to be honest with you. So let's see, Michael Brown. I would think it comes from their profile. I don't know about direct deposit though, because there's two places for email. Yep, that must be where it's coming from, because on general information for Michael Brown, there's no email address, but on his direct deposit, it's coming from here. So that is where it is coming from, Michelle, the direct deposit. Next. Important notice, this is your final opportunity to review or edit employee detail for the upcoming reports. Click double check, make sure it's correct. Before you print an email or e-file reports, you must recheck all the figures which are included. If there is any that are incorrect, fix it now. By agree, you're agreeing that you've double checked it, basically is what it's saying. You're gonna get Atrix pop-up if you want to e-file. Next. You're going to see, if you were to sign up through Atrix or you want to do it a la carte, how much it's going to cost you. 138 bucks for 49 employees and one EW2. EW2 means it's electronic, right? I have one employee. You click on what's this and it tells you kind of what that means. Or I can say I don't want to do any of this and I go down to other options. I want to print my own W-2s and then I can have Atrix e-file the rest. It'll tell you how much that's going to cost. Or say I'm going to take care of it all myself. I don't care about the government's 10 form filing limit. I'm going to click on, I'm going to print my federal W-2s and I'm going to print my employees. You're going to get this notice right here, organization filing in aggregate 10 or more, the IRS returns in a calendar year of any kind, including W-2, will need to file all returns electronically, right? So that's where it's telling you, you have to do it electronically. It sees that it's more than 10, so it's saying, hey, you need to select the e-file to remain compliant. It's gonna file federal and state, right? For some companies that are e-filing, you can go through the process of printing them first, and then you can come back and go through this process again and e-file it. That way you have a copy. It also will offer you the ability to pay, I think it's 35 bucks is what it was in previous years, for Atrix to send you like a CD or a link to all your W-2s. I prefer to like print it to a PDF and save it myself, and then go back through the process and do an e-file. This is saying that based on your selections, these are the forms that are going to print. If you want a copy for your records of the actions that will be taken, click print. These are the actions. It's just going to print this list. Maybe I want that. Maybe I don't. Go to next. I better hurry. I only have 8 minutes. Again, a wizard up here. It's going to walk you through the process. Report 1 of 5. This is the employee's W-2. So when you buy the form, if you're actually printing them, you need to buy a 4-part perforated form, meaning it's perforated here in the middle and perforated down, straight down the middle there. And it's blank. It's a blank perforated form that you can find in that article that I gave you. So it tells you right here what to do. Click print final and then click next step. Print final, save it as a PDF, or it tells you to insert the perforated form, tells you where you can buy it or you can call. I just save it as a PDF and then I go to next. Step 2, this is the employer W-2. Print final, next step. Federal W-2. Print final, next step. This is going to be your federal W-3. A good double check is to get your 941s. For every quarter, they should equal the W-3. Your 940 should equal the W-3. That is in a PowerPoint presentation. Now we're on step 5, the W-2 notice. If you're actually printing these to a piece of paper or to that 4-part perforated form, this could also print on the back of the 4-part perforated form. Or you can print it on a piece of paper and stuff it with the envelopes. Then you come up with this is the history and the detail of the completed and available actions. So it's telling you when you printed them, if you completed this information, whether you've e-filed them. You also could come back to this screen to correct W-2s, e-file them, reprint completed ones, or start the process completely over. This is where I was saying you can do the paper copies and then just start over and e-file it. It's not that, that many steps. That way you have paper copies yourself, you don't have to pay for them. Also, if you e-file, you're going to be able to print or email your employees' online access information to where they will get a username and a password or to a website for Atrix that they can look up their W-2 information. So I think it was Tammy or somebody who said, hey, do you have trouble emailing these out from Atrix? I just printed the online access information and sent it to the employees. Then they were able to use that information to look up their own W-2s because I was having trouble. When you're done, you can click close and your process is complete. The notes on here are, the 10 forms and then your due date to your employees and to the IRS is January 31st. If you need to go back in there, federal forms, you can go to view history on the W-2, W-3. Click on it and you can click edit. Excuse me. It's taking a minute. Bye, Christy. Thank you. So it'll pop this back open for you to make your changes if you need to correct something, like I said, reprint or start the process over again. Look up somebody's email, online access information so you can give it to them. You can do that as well. So super simple. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, nobody has any questions. This next slide talks about advancing to the next fiscal year. It's talking about advancing from period 12 to period 1. And if you have, you should be in period 12, meaning your calendar is in period 12. You can have multiple years of data open, meaning your general ledger. You can have as many years open as you want. And you can choose to archive as often as you like. Payroll and the general ledger, that's going to be up to you. Payroll archive and the general ledger archive are completely different processes. Just this year, they are giving you the option to archive payroll and the general ledger at the same time. I wouldn't recommend that you archive your general ledger for, every other year or 2 years, and we'll talk about that next week. You have to have exclusive access to advance to the next fiscal year. And you want to make sure that your company's backed up before you move forward. What that means is that when you are advancing and to advance to the next fiscal year, it's simply meaning that in your live environment, let me switch over there. Hopefully you guys are changing your accounting periods and you're closing out every period in 1/6. So when I'm talking about opening up the fiscal year, I'm talking about 25 is open, just January of 25 is open. The rest of 25 is not open. And it won't open until January becomes your default posting period. Right now, December is my default posting period, which all of yours should be December as well. But when we're getting ready to close the fiscal year, we're going to make sure that January is our default. To do that, you have to have exclusive access, change the company, open exclusively. And change the period, advancing from 12 to 1. Change the period. It's going to run an audit, make sure that everything is complete, and it's going to advance to January of 2025. Periods 2 through 12 are now open. You can manage those period availabilities now here, where I would probably lock every single period in 25, especially December. Because we could be entering December 24 and then all of a sudden it posts in 25 and we messed up. So lock them down, but now January is open. You also could have 24 open. You also could have 23 open. Just depends on how you manage your books. So that's what those slides mean. I walk you through the process, bless you, of advancing. And then here are your resources. So if you need help, you need us to help walk you through payroll close or general ledger close, reach out to support, book a call with one of our consultants if you're one of our clients, so we can walk you through it and hold your hand, especially if it's your first year, kind of it's intimidating. There's a year-end procedures guide here, home and resources. If you are on a new version of Sage, you should be able to go to product documents, year-end guide, and it will take you to that year-end guide that I was showing you. If you can't get there, let me know. I can save this as a PDF and email it to you. The knowledge base also has a year-end center with checklists and things like that we saw earlier, as does the community hub. And then also Sage support, you can live chat with them, but you might wait a while, especially now that it's going to year end. So I would be jumping into your system today, running, a audit your general ledger, audit your payroll. We'll talk about general ledger next year, but audit your next week. Make sure that it's clean so that you don't have to reach out to Sage tech support. We can make sure those things are taken care of beforehand. Any questions before I close out the call about anything we covered today? So what you should take away, you guys need to jump off the call, decide when you're going to close. Are you closing? Are you archiving? The timing is so important. Updating the system to the new version. If you need help with that, again, book a session with me or book a session, reach out to Sage or the ETHOSystems support so that somebody can help you, guide you. But thanks for your time today, guys. I appreciate it. And Jen will be sending out this recording, and then you guys hopefully have downloaded the PowerPoint. If you didn't, she'll send that along with the recording. Oh, the PowerPoint is actually in the handout. So in the meeting, I don't know if you guys can see this. If you guys have this meeting information right here, right down here, it says handout. You should be able to see that PowerPoint there, and you can download that. I'm not going to email it separately. Jen, who is our marketing guru at ETHOSystems, everybody that registered for the call is going to get a copy of the recording and get a copy of the PowerPoint. So that should be coming, and it will go to the email address that you used to register for this training. And then, like I said, next Tuesday, I'll be talking through the general ledger close and 1099s. So if you need to take that, jump on, make sure you register. Okay, thanks guys. I will talk to you later.